I don't enjoy anything about a car. What I do have a passion for is
good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Just like you taught me, Papa.
My name is Raymond Khambatta. I work in Homeland Security, joined with UAE Defense. I remember this one day that my dad told us that he was going to go to the neighborhood and get some wiper blades changed. And he came back a couple hours later with an $800 bill. And it seemed like the mechanic back there at the garage upsold him everything, from brakes to tires to, all the fluids and the filters, saying that, this is for keeping your family safe. And, he kind of knew how to play my dad, and my dad definitely got played. And what was an $8 part that needed to be replaced turned out to be an $800 bill. And I just found it so shocking and so manipulating in a way that I thought the next time my dad needed something done, I would do it myself. So it started off back in high school when I was kind of, just working on my dad's car back and forth, trying to do just, simple things like a brake change, just an oil change. And I think that's how I got involved, because right after I finished high school, I didn't know what I wanted to get into, so I thought I'll take engineering, and I took, mechanical engineering. And all throughout my 4 years of mechanical engineering, I learned that people were still struggling, my seniors were still struggling with finding jobs. And, back home, being a mechanic pays quite well. An average PD, like a regular doctor, can charge up to $88 an hour. However, an automotive technician can charge up to $120 an hour. So this is back home in Toronto, Canada. I grew up in Ontario, born and raised. And again, back in the day, we didn't have Google, we didn't have any apps or sites that we could just get on. You actually had to buy an instruction manual book and go through the book and kind of work your way through it. After that, I started getting a lot of clients coming in, friends, family, asking me to restore some of their cars. So that's where it all started for me. So currently, I just finished off with this one here. She's a 1972 Dodge Charger, RTR in a sense. My idea initially for this vehicle was a lot different. With everyone telling me to go with an LS swap, I realized that everybody here does an LS swap. And what I found was that there weren't many hardcore American muscle cars available here, and not a lot of people knew how to work on them. So I started pushing towards more on, just going the classic, old school way on it. And the more I tried to convince myself as well as other people that that's the way I'm going forward, the more, I would say, the more they fought back and the more hardships I kind of came across. What pushed me to go completely in the opposite direction was sticking with the original block, which is a 360. After that, I contacted a person that I knew who built superchargers back in the day. Mr. Bill Dyers. He still currently owns a shop in Boston, and I contacted him, told him I had a 360 block, and he custom built me an intake manifold, especially for my engine, and a blower to match that. And from there I kind of built up to the carbs and down to the pistons. People were completely against the idea. They said, no, that's not possible. It's not going to work. You should definitely go with newer technology and a modern swap and all that. And the more they fought me, the more adamant I became to actually do it the way you see her. So the name Kraken, actually, the way I came across that was I got so much heat for going old school, and I got so much aggravation from people close to me saying that that wasn't the way, it's a myth, it's not going to happen, so just one day she became a mythical creature for me, and I just figured I would name her the Kraken, being the monster she is. And with all the grief I got, I figured that would be the most suitable name for her. So I got the car from Texas, Houston, and the first time she came out of the container, she looked complete, which is what I wanted to see. However, upon closer inspection, I realized that every inch of her was rotted out, and one of the first things I wanted to do was get everything sandblasted, just so I could see what I had to work with. When I got the recovery, took her to the sandblasting guy, I asked the sandblasting guy what material was he going to be using, how much PSI was he going to be using, and he looked at me as if I asked him, for his arm and his leg, like he had no clue what I was talking about. That being said, I had to explain it to him that, this is how much pressure I need you to use. I need you to use glass beading, not rock salt, or the kind of material you use for sandblasting. So there was a point where I took it to several garages and I just said, "Kalas, that's it, no more." The engine's been rebuilt 3 times. Reason being because it's just bounced from mechanic shop to finally me doing it myself. The paint job's been done 3 times. Not because the paint jobs were bad, but every time I shifted her to a garage or anywhere, people are just not very aware of other people's properties here, and they'll put tools on the car and there's scratches on the car, and with everything being done twice or 3 times, and having parts missing or having parts broken that were perfectly good, it kind of pushed me to finish the project by myself one last time. I had a hard time, sourcing parts. Sourcing a vacuum pump for my headlights was not easy. In fact, it was impossible. Eventually, I took a used wiper motor and converted the vacuum system to flip up the headlight doors into electrical, and I kind of rigged my own little scheme there. So some of the conversions that I have done is I've converted her from a belt-driven power steering to an electronic power steering, along with a better modern brake booster that she's got. I've removed the fuel tank from the back and added a fuel cell in the trunk. I've also removed the battery from the front, from the engine bay, and placed it in the back inside an insulated battery box. In regards to the interior, I've kept her as classic as I possibly could. The only thing I have changed in the interior is I've removed the analog speedometer and added a digital speedometer to it. So surprisingly, I got a few awards at the Emirates Custom Car Show. I wasn't expecting any awards. By the good graces of God, I won first place muscle car. I also won People's Choice Award. I won top 5 best in class. And there's 2 other awards I won that till today I don't know what they're for, because the announcements were in Arabic, so I have no clue what they're for. So I definitely do feel that there is value in doing restorations yourself. it gives, at least personally, I feel that way. I feel like if you don't put in your own blood, sweat, and tears into a restoration, it really isn't your restoration then. Again, these are classics. These are vehicles that are going to give you, twisty necks one day or the other, and you got to know where goes what goes where, and at the end of the day, if you haven't been part of the actual build, then you're just going to be ringing your mechanic every 10 days and asking him, well, this isn't working and that isn't working. And at the end of the day, I feel like a person should be involved with their own restoration, just so that when you go to meets and you meet people and you go to events and people ask you questions, you don't point at your mechanic and say, well, I just own the car, I didn't really build her. That's my personal belief. Sure, if you're going to ask me about if this is one of my favorite restros that I've done so far, the answer is definitely no. This isn't one of my favorites. This is not even close to being one of my favorites. This actually, with all the grief I got at the end of the project, I started really, trying to push myself away from the project. Just because this is actually my first project in UAE. That being said, it holds a special place in my heart, but on an overall basis, definitely not. I have too many frustrating stories with this vehicle and the stories behind the build that are quite frustrating, so definitely not my favorite build, for sure. Most renowned projects, kind of hard to say. I've done many Cadillacs that I have loved. I've done 54 Porsche, Camaros, IROCs, Firebirds, which were close to my heart. Actually, I would have to say the closest one to my heart was a 1959 Bel Air boat. It wasn't even a car. It was a complete fiberglass body boat that I restored, and I would have to say that's the one restoration I could never forget. A lot of good people behind that story, a lot of memories behind that story. Many a times people are kind of, taken back when I tell them that I really don't have a passion for cars. If I had $1 million, I wouldn't go buy myself a Ferrari or anything like that. What I do have a passion for is, you see something abandoned, you see something that has been left for junk, and you bring it back to life, and you see what's behind me here, and the sense of accomplishment you get and the pride that you see in people's eyes, and just having to talk about the story, talk about the journey. The journey is very important to me, more than the finished product at the end of the day. I definitely was attached to the Charger from the first day of the build to the last day of the build. Currently she's for sale and my attachment is done. My passion for building cars definitely has evolved over the years. They say if you do something over 10,000 hours, you kind of become an expert in it. And I think that's quite clear for me. I'll give you a very recent example, which is the project I'm working on right now. The client gave me his 1974 Mercedes for a full restoration about 2 weeks ago. Currently, she's already in the final stage of body work, mechanical is done, everything's done. Because I know the right people to, attack, when to attack and approach. And I have a certain process and procedure in place that I have used and I would say refined over the years. So I have the least amount of resistance in any of my restorations. So that being said, I feel quite confident and I feel good about the fact that I can get restorations done, in the most effective and time and financially effective ways. Yeah, so my tattoo here is just, I guess, something I would want to live by. I wouldn't really say I live by it, but it basically reminds me to have good thoughts, good words, good deeds. I am a Zoroastrian at the end of the day, and this is what we believe in. You know, it's our core belief predominantly. So it's basically just reminds me on a day-to-day level, not just with cars or anything, just in general life, to have good thoughts, good words, and good deeds.